Okay. Um, Greg Picard, thanks for
Yeah.
talking to me today. So you currently are in the solar business, and I wanted to ask you what you're doing and how'd you get into this?
Yeah. Um, let's see. Currently, I'm the director of operations or the regional director of RegenEn Solar based out of Boise, Idaho. Our headquarters is over in Louisville, Kentucky, and we just opened up this is the second branch. So this is location number two. We opened that up last October, and I'm starting to get that off the ground. It's me and a couple business partners that have gone in together, and we're slowly learning the ropes of what it takes to get a bigger business off the ground.
And what do you guys specialize in?
So currently we're specializing in residential installs, and we're trying to shoot for some commercial installs. We're also going to be focusing on solar panel cleaning and maybe some retail sales as well. So we
Okay.
just picked up Goal Zero, Dakota Lithium, which specializes in lithium batteries. Also, we can pair that with a solar panel. And then we also picked up Solaro, which does like solar powered vents on the roof for like on your home. If you wanted to have like instead of an attic fan that was powered by electricity, you can just have it solar powered.
So your story is interesting to me. You have only been in the solar industry, solar business, um, not even a year maybe, and which is a huge transition. But your former life, up until about a year ago, is fascinating. You were in the film business
Yep,
as a location sound mixer,
correct.
and
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is, but
Yep.
that's sort of a contracting gig, and that's all you've ever done. Is that right?
But no, I did some things before that. So let's see, should I start back how I got into that?
Yeah.
Would that be all right? Okay,
Yeah,
so
please.
I was in college and I was working at a snowboard shop, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do once I graduated college. And kid, there was a kid that was coming in that was working on skateboard videos, and he had seemed like he had a pretty cool job. He was starting to make a name for himself. His name was Colin, and he came in, and that's what he was doing. You know, he was on his way to LA. And I had recently attended a party, and somebody had introduced me to Michael Weir, and Michael Weir was going around doing rodeos. So he was filming rodeos with Jerry Long, and Jerry was here in Boise, and Mike passed my name along to him, and got a call to go do a commercial for Ford, and had to learn how to mic people up, and it was really uncomfortable. And he said he was always looking for a good sound guy because they were hard to come by. And I made more in one day than I did, I think, 2 weeks at the snowboard shop. So after that happened, I reevaluated and kind of felt like that's what I wanted to go towards. And at the time, we had some videos playing, some snowboard videos playing in the snowboard shop that we'd watch when we were bored and we had no customers. And I noticed that after going and working on the commercial, I realized that the sound was really bad on these snowboard videos. So I thought it'd be cool to eventually one day be a sound technician and travel the world with cameramen. And I started to think realistically about it. I was like, there's no way that anybody's ever going to pay me to do that. Like they're not going to pay the money to do it. What I should do is focus on doing post audio and maybe picking the music, doing the sound effects. I got a degree in communications, and that was my favorite class after I graduated college. Was my favorite class out of everything was the audio class and working with Pro Tools.
Wait. So let me just interrupt real quick because I'm curious. So you're at this board shop, you're in college,
Yep.
Doing all this stupid stuff, probably spending a lot too much time on the mountain.
Yep.
And so filmmaking was not on your radar.
It kind of was when I got into college and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I figured my dad wanted me to go into horticulture, and I just was scratching my head while he was trying to help me pick out my freshman year classes. And I was like, horticulture, like I couldn't get into the program, thank God. And I was like, oh, I'll just figure it out. The guy that was helping me choose my classes, he's like, you just need to do your basics and get your primary classes out of your way. So, you take your 101 classes and start going. And about 4 years into it, I realized like, I'm never going to graduate. I got to really pick a major and pick a direction. And that's when I chose the communication degree, because that was more along the lines of film. And I guess like with a lot of people in the film industry, they think that they're eventually going to be an actor. And that was something that I had always wanted to do when I was younger. When I was in high school, I was in drama class and I should have pursued that. I got a little bit of recognition and kind of blew the teachers off, but I thought maybe it was a way to get my foot in the door as an actor. So I was like, yeah, I'll do communications, and that's kind of a film, kind of geared towards film.
Did you do any acting after that little stint in high school? Nothing in college or any kind of community stuff? No.
Nope. I did later on when I was living in Salt Lake. I started to take acting classes, and that came to a screeching halt when life hit me upside the head, because I was trying to do an audition with a brand new born child, and it just was not working. And I realized that I had to put my dreams on hold, and everything that I wanted was just going to have to wait, and the kid was going to have to take priority. So I think I got to the audition place. I was doing something, I was changing a diaper in the bathroom. I was just like, what am I doing? I just grabbed the kid and we just turned around and walked out and didn't even go into the audition.
Wow.
But,
wow. Yeah. Okay. Do you remember what it was for? What the audition was for?
I don't. I know it was in Provo, because it took me like an hour to get there and I was late. It was for some commercial. I don't know, some like dentist commercial or something, or toothpaste or something silly.
So all right. So then you find yourself at the store at the snowboard shop.
At the snowboard shop. Yep. So I was at the snowboard shop working with Jerry. Did one commercial, and I didn't understand how the freelance world worked. Right. Like I was just used to collecting a paycheck and working for Bogus Basin or the ski resorts, or always having an employer write me a check. And I didn't know how freelance worked, and I just didn't understand it. So I was waiting for Jerry to give me a job, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was going nuts. I was like, I can't just sit around and like wait for somebody else to give me a job. So I found an audio engineering school in Florida. We went and toured it, and it was way too much money. I think it was like $80,000 for 2 years or something. And it just didn't rub me right. So we came back and I found a different one out of Phoenix, and I ended up going to the audio engineering school. It's called the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. They had a really small post facility, like a post program, but their main focus was like studio musicians, like how to go run an SSL, or like everybody that was in my class was all wanted to do work with a Grateful Dead or record some crazy album. And I was the odd man out. The first day of class, they asked what everybody wanted to go into, and everybody was, I want to make music, and I want to do an album. And I had pieced it together. I was just like, what are you guys thinking? Nobody pays for music anymore. When was the last time you guys paid for a CD? Like, how do you think you're going to make any money? And so when it came to me, I was kind of ashamed and kind of like embarrassed, but I was like, I want to go into post-production audio, and everybody looked at me weird, and the teacher smiled, and he's like, cool. because he understood, he went through the program and he knew that that's where the money was. And by the end of it, I think 75% to 80% of our class ended up going and getting jobs in the entertainment post world.
Right, because it's that's where you can find a paycheck. It's not freelance. You're
Yep.
You're not hustling for the rent money every day.
Yep.
Yep.
And so during that time, like for my internship, I went and worked on live sound, which I knew that I never wanted to do ever again, because you have to schlep these huge heavy speakers, and there's it's just a dirty, crappy job, and everybody's losing their hearings, and it's just it's just like being on a crew for a band, and then I actually did a podcast. I helped one of my teachers before podcasting, before anybody knew what they were, like I'd never even heard the word. There was nothing on iTunes. There was nothing anywhere. He had one of these microphones that I have, and he would record himself, and he was basically doing like a ripoff of the Saturday Night Live, the dog, the dog with he usually drinks and has like a cigar in his mouth, I think, on one of the late night shows. He sounded like him, and he was just trying to do like this comedy skit. And I was there, and I'd record it and I'd edit it for him. It never went anywhere, but I don't even remember where we were putting these things, but there was like 3 other ones. It was non-existent, and I had no idea that it was going to turn into such a big market.
Right. All right. So I want to go back though, because I think for a lot of people, it's and me included, it's extremely difficult to, and you kind of mentioned this, to get out of your head when you're a wage earner. You're waiting on that check every week, every 2 weeks, whatever it is, for your job.
Yeah.
And it's a shift in mindset to become a freelancer and effectively an entrepreneur. Did you grow up with the kind of messaging, that your father, who wanted you to go to horticulture school, did he also expect you to go get a W-2 job, or was he encouraging you to go out and start your own horticulture business, or what?
Yeah. So, and then just to put a button on that real quick. So when I came back from my audio engineering school and decided that I was going to do that, Jerry actually contacted me and wanted to hire me as an employee. And I was like, I'm already enrolled in school. But for me, once I got a bite of that freelance check, I was like, this is what I want to do. I don't want to wait for other people to hire me. I don't want to be waiting on somebody else. I want to be in charge of my own destiny. I want to see if there's more jobs out there. But at a young age, I wasn't forced, but my mom was pretty adamant about me being out there making money. I think the earliest memories I have of making money was shoveling the walks in Jackson Hole it was cold back then. I know that everybody always says that it was so cold when they were little, but I remember looking up and seeing the snowdrifts above my dad's head. And I had to go out there and shovel walkways, and I think I found like $100 bill in the snow. My brothers and sisters were pretty upset because, I had all this money, but
it was Jackson after all.
Yeah, that's right. And that was kind of the start of it for me. And then we moved to Boise, Idaho, and I was out mowing lawns from the onset of when we moved here. I think I was in about third or fourth grade when I was old enough to start pushing lawnmowers. And I had to go knock on doors and ask people if they wanted me to do it. My mom and dad helped me get my first one. And then the other instance that really strikes home, and I was just telling Brianna about this, was there was a contest at school, and it was like to raise funds for, I don't know, some charity, for Girl Scouts or something of that sort. We had to go and we had to sell cookies, or we had to sell Snickers candy bars or something like that. And then part of the proceeds would go to whatever fund this whatever charity. And they handed us a sheet, and it showed you like all the stuff that you'd win if you sold a certain bracket. And every day after school, I didn't have a sport to play, so my mom would set me out and be like, okay, you're gonna go knock on all these doors in this neighborhood, and then you're gonna go to this neighborhood. And I came back, I think a month or two later, and my teacher couldn't believe how many signatures I had. And then all the stuff came to the school. So like you had a list of all the things that you'd win. And mine was so big, it came in this huge box. And I just remember I think my mom had to come pick me up because the box was so big because it was chock full of all this stuff that I had won. And it was just unprecedented. Nobody had ever seen that before. So
confronting other people, approaching other people rather, talking to them, making an ask, selling something, basically selling yourself. You've been doing that forever.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, I was thinking today, my mom always meant like, my mom worked for herself. She was an entrepreneur, but it was always, she would always ask me, do you want other people to get paid for the sweat off of your back? And that was just kind of the motivator that she had, that she never liked to work for anybody. She wanted to be her own boss, and she didn't like, she didn't like trying to make the man money. She wanted a cut of it. And that was always a hard thing for me to grasp of why I never really clicked in like a traditional job. I was there, but you always wonder in the background, how much money are these people making off of you by your work, and
that was a thought that was you remember as being a part of your thinking early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was there because I could never pinpoint why I wasn't happy in those jobs. There was something underneath that just didn't set right to me. But back to the, I don't know, do you want me to finish out how I ended up traveling the world?
Well, that's a whole, your career in the film business is pretty, it's extraordinary. And I do want to get to that, but I just think of all the people who have these dreams. They watch films, they talk about films with their friends and family, and it's such a just all pervasive part of our life. I think a lot of folks, they see that and they want to be involved in that business, in that, actually I even say, I don't think I didn't see it as a business even. It was just, it was art, or it was something else, but it wasn't business. Did you always see the film industry as a business, or did you have other thoughts about it?
Yeah. When it all happened and I started doing it, when I got serious about it, like when I went to the audio engineering school, I remember everybody in my family kind of looking at me sideways, going like, what are you doing? What, you want to go do what? Like, how are you ever going to make any money at that? And the motivator for me was, it was hard to listen to people. And I love my dad, but my dad was working out a government job. And every day, he seemed miserable whenever he came home, and he'd leave. He would get up at like 4 a.m, go get on a government bus, ride out to the site, which was like an hour and a half or something, sleep on the way there, work, and then get back on the bus and sleep on the way home. And he did that, I think, 4 days a week, because he'd have Friday, Saturday off. And he was just thrashed. I respect anybody that has to go through really bad times to support their family and to man up and do what they got to do. But I didn't want that. And I got to the point, I think, with my career and deciding in life that I didn't care what I was going to do. I just wanted to do something that I enjoyed. I didn't care if I got paid. And as much as like I hear that now and it sounds so cliche and people are like, yeah, right. But really, like I was more than willing to be poor to do what I was going to do. And I was poor. Like when I very first started, we had like, there was a time when there was $40. We had $40 to our name. And we had, we had $80, but a family member had come over who had a drug problem and ended up taking us to the ATM, and we gave him 40 of our last $80, and we had a kid on the way. And that was like the worst off I think we ever were.
Where were you in your career?
So that was just at the start, because we had lived in Salt Lake, and we had just bought a house, and we were trying to fix up the house, and we had a kid on the way, and it was just, yeah, it was really early on in my like professional real sound mixing career.
Okay, so this though is after, because you did do a stint at a production house, at a post-production house.
Yep.
And so this is the transition into freelance work.
Correct. So I went to the audio engineering school, graduated, went and lived in LA, worked at a post-production facility there, worked at a duplication facility there, and just, we weren't happy in LA. We were in Burbank and it just wasn't working. I was working for other people. I wasn't freelancing. My wife was miserable because she had to drive from Burbank to West Covina every day. And she was not stoked. We got a puppy, which was like the dumbest thing, but maybe probably what saved us, probably got us out of there, because there's no way, like, it would just it was eating up the carpet while we were gone, because we were trying to leave the puppy at home all day. And so we left there and we went to Salt Lake City, and they had the Sundance Film Commission there, which I just had a movie that just got admitted and just showed there, which was kind of weird. I never thought that would happen, but it made it, and it got a lot of accolades, and a lot of people really liked it. But so we got to Salt Lake, and that was rough. Like, it was hard to get plugged into it. I was working at a duplication facility, which was like a DIY duplication facility. It was basically some guy got like a bunch of his VCRs and was duplicating home videos for family members and like scanning people's photos.
Sort of the strikes me as like the wedding videographer's equivalent in the sound world.
Yes. Yeah. It was bad. I was like, I went to school for this.
Right.
And I did it, and I just came from LA, and like, what am I doing here? And I was just questioning my life. And then I got a job at Snowbird as that audio visual technician. And I did that for a while, and I think about 2 seasons there, and then worked myself up to an assistant management position. And then within a week, I was hired at a TV station. So I had to leave there after I got promoted. I felt really bad, but worked at the television studio and did a morning show every morning for the K-Jazz Cafe and the home team. So it was like a news show and a women's like TV show. And but in that space was Mike McDonough, and he was a post-production, like he was like an OG. Like, I remember talking to him and asked him how long he'd been doing it, and he's like, I've been doing it since 80 or since 77 or something. I looked at myself and I was just like, that's longer than I've been alive. So how about you just check your ego? But I was able to get on with him and learn a bunch of tricks with him. And I started doing post audio. Like, I really started to get projects handed to me, and they were lower budget stuff. Like, it wasn't what he was working on. He was going to like Skywalker Ranch, which seemed unheard of to me. And like, I couldn't even fathom that. He was doing like IMAX movies. And I started editing these movies by myself, and I was getting so frustrated with the quality of audio that I was getting handed. I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go in. I think I'm gonna start doing that. And at that time, I started to get back into act. Like, that's when I took my first acting class. And how did that work? No, that's what I did. I started looking on Craigslist, and there was an ad on Craigslist to go be a location sound person. I had no experience, had none of the equipment, knew nothing about it, had never been on set before, and went and worked for Spanky Ward. At that time, I met Sana Foley, who's a dear friend, but she was the one that really, we were waiting for everybody to get to set, and we were early, and we were talking, and I told her what I wanted to do, and she's just like, you should do it. You should totally do it. And nobody had ever said that to me before. Everybody had always kind of like second guessed me, or I don't know, just always wasn't really that motivated, or told you that you could do it. So she ended up becoming a dear friend. I'm still friends with her today. And we actually ended up taking acting class together. But that one job, I had no experience, but I knew what it should sound like, and I knew what it shouldn't sound like. And I got along with everybody on set. And then it was the referral network. And then she started passing my name along.
It can catapult you very quickly,
Yes.
Though it doesn't feel like it. You're editing, you're doing post-production for movies, crappy little B movie, student films, whatever anybody will give you, and you hear how rotten it is. I can do better than this. But was there something else about saying I'm going to be a location guy as opposed to sitting in the studio?
Oh yeah. Yep. So there's also another thing to this too, that a brother-in-law had made mention about me being in the AV club when I was working at Snowbird. And that just really like rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, I went to school for this and I had bigger aspirations, and to kind of like get kicked when I was down really motivated me and made me hungry to want to go and do something more. I was doing the post editing as well. When I was doing that morning show, and I would be in the studio in the control room for hours, from like 5 a.m. till about 10, and then I'd go upstairs and I'd go edit. So I'd spend all day behind a computer doing software updates and doing fade up, fade downs, and fixing stuff. And I just realized like my personality didn't really fit a post person. I was getting lonely, I was getting depressed, and I just didn't like it. I didn't want to spend my days stuck in a room doing that. And that was kind of the big change for me, is when I started going and looking. Well, the shows that I was working on actually got canceled because the owner of the studio died. So then I was working over at Fox 13 running Master Control. And that was even worse than before, because now I had to sit there and watch Judge Judy and The Simpsons and all this horrible daytime show, like soap opera stuff every day. So it got even worse. Like, you don't think it can get worse. It got worse. And at that time, it was really bad, because I didn't think, I was super depressed. I was thinking about committing suicide, to be honest with you, because I'd done all this stuff to work up to, and here I was watching daytime TV show every day, and you couldn't do any better than this. And then that's when I got the call to go do a job. It was a student film. And again, it was, okay, we're going to pay per day. The check's going to go to you. And Son is the one that got me the job. And it was Jack and Jen. It was a feature. It was a feature, but it was a low budget film. But it was a good chunk of money. And I left Fox, and I used a bunch of student equipment, and that was kind of the start of it.
So you literally left a salary job with some security. You've got a wife, I think, maybe. Yep. You've got rent. You've got bills. You've got real world things going on, and you decide that you're going to quit that and go freelance on a student film.
Yeah. It was, that tells you how bad the job was. Like I had reached my max. And I remember sitting there watching one of those shows, and deciding that I was going to do that. And it literally felt like I was standing on a cliff. That's the only kind of analogy that I can give. But I was standing on the cliff and I was about ready to jump off. And once you jump, you can't go back. Like that's how I felt. And it was so bad that I had to do it. Like I had to at least try. It couldn't be worse than what I was dealing with. So I did that job, and got along with everybody and got more referrals. And then those turned into more referrals, and the jobs got better pay, and was able to buy some pieces of equipment. And then the magic thing happened where my life really, it went from so bad to so good so quick. It's unreal, like, to look back. So what had happened was I decided to put an ad online on Production Hub, and you could just put your ad out there. So if people ever needed a sound mixer, they could find you. And when I did that, about maybe a month or two after, I got an email from a company up in Canada called Free Ride Entertainment. I had never heard of them. Well, I had heard of them because we actually used to watch their videos when I worked at Snowbird, but I didn't pay attention to who it was. But everybody else was really fired up about who they were, but I had forgotten about it. And I looked them up online and saw that they worked with Red Bull and that they do all this work for Red Bull. So I kind of felt like that was the point in my life where it was either going to be the moment where I become a coward and I don't go after what I want and don't try, or I put on my big boy pants, pick up the phone and call them and talk to them, and that was something that my parents had kind of instilled in me, to be able to do that, to just call them, just pick up the phone and call. And I remember I called and talked to Axel and we had a chat, and I booked a job for, it was Cold Rush for, I think it was NBC, or I think it was not for NBC. And we went to Silverton. We did the Cold Rush event there, and it was all about if I could do sound and snowboard. So all of a sudden I did my job that I wanted to do. I ended up landing my job that I wanted when I was back at the boardroom. And from then on, I was their go-to sound mixer for the next 12 years. And that took me, just from that point, like, that changed my life. It allowed us to move out of Salt Lake over to Portland. It took me to China. It took me to Vietnam. It took me to the Arctic Circle. It took me out to Tahiti, took me to Nepal. It took me to a lot of places where I had to pinch myself. And the thing is when I wanted to do it, I never wanted to get paid. And I was making so much money doing this that I couldn't believe it. Like, they're paying me. I'd be here for free, but they're actually paying me a lot of money to be able to do this with the skills that I have.
How did you learn those skills? Because, doing post-production,
Yep.
That's a totally different animal than location sound. If anybody wants to get into location sound, it's a very, very different thing than going to some audio school. Maybe the schools have changed, but this is I do want to get you in here, but when I've noticed all the location sound guys, it's in low budget stuff, it's one guy. In the sports stuff, it's one guy with a mixer and microphone with his boom pole. Point being, there's not guys to learn from.
Yep.
How did you learn the craft to get good enough to get a gig with Free Ride like this?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I bullshitted my way through it, to be 100% honest. Like, when I did the job with Spanky, I didn't know what I was doing. They had to walk me, and the closest I had ever come was the Ford commercial and putting a lavalier on somebody. That was really the only experience that I had. And then with Spanky, he he showed me how to use the boom pole, but we were just plugged directly into camera. And then from there, my parents helped me buy like a really cheap Audio Technica mic. And I had to go buy a broom pole, like it's so embarrassing now. And I can't believe I'm admitting this, but it's like a pole that you use to wash your windows or something. It's an extension pole, and it was bright yellow. And I went and spray painted it black.
A painter's pole.
Yeah, a painter's pole. I didn't have the money for a boom pole, and that's all I could afford. I mean, like I said, I was broke, and so I was like, all right, I'll have the microphone, I'll have the painter's pole, and then we'll just run it into camera. And then from there, I got the recorder. Sana had actually referred me to be a boom operator for another job. How did that work? It was no, it wasn't. Sorry, there's two jobs that are kind of mixing together, because there was my girlfriend's boyfriend with Melissa Milano, where I was an extra and I ran into the sound mixer, Paul Maritz's, and he was the one, because I wore high heels, like boots, and I had to walk, and he was on me real quick about putting foam on the bottom of my shoes. But then later on, she got me on a job. I forgot what it was called, but I was Paul's boom operator, and I went out there to go do it. And within the first scene, he's like, "You don't know what you're doing, so I'll help you." He's like, "Just watch me. I'll basically do it." He let me hit record sometimes, and he was really gracious about just letting me help out. So I was more of like a sound utility, not really a boom operator. So he was, yeah. So I learned.
Explain that for people who don't know. They're roughly three positions.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So there's a sound mixer who sits behind the recorder, and he's the one that says rolling. He's the one that cues the recorder and starts recording. You have the boom operator who's holding up the pole with the microphone on it. He's the one that screams sound speeds. And then you have the sound utility who's running around behind as like a support person, helping the mixer do whatever he needs done, and the boom operator, because those guys really can't move from their positions. So that's a supportive role. When I was over in Portland, Oregon, I also was the sound utility on Grimm. So I learned that too. From Tyler Stevens, who was another sound mixer. That's probably where I got a lot of my experience from, but I kind of feel like I had a lot of my chops before I got there. And for me, I was kind of an anomaly, because most of the sound guys at that time were just location sound people, and I had done the post. So I knew what post wanted, and I understood what they didn't want. And I knew like room tone was a very big deal before everybody started catching on that it was needed, because when you're editing and you don't have that, you realize how valuable it is. But I always could tell when I was on set, my saying was, I don't work for the cameraman, I don't work for the director, I don't work for any of these people. I work for the post sound mixer. That's who I'm here working for. So everybody else can kind of like kiss it. I'm working for the post sound guy, so he's not cursing my name, because my name's gonna be right on those files, and I don't want anybody cursing my name, because it's the worst when you get to post and you don't have anything to work with.
So you actually had that frame of thinking very early on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See, that's huge. I think for me, for a lot of people, when they get into the business, you don't really know who you're working for. I mean, in a philosophical sense, I get it, or the gaffer hired me, or the DP, or whatever, art director hired me, whatever it is. But that's a very different way to think. That's thinking ahead. And I think it takes people quite a while to get there. So I guess my point is that you're, the point up where you're thinking, I hate this so much I could kill myself, was incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, that to take all of that and bring it forward and to bring it onto set, really, really rare. So how did you get on Grimm?
On Grimm, so we were in Portland. How'd that work out? We were in Salt Lake, and we had decided that we wanted to leave Salt Lake and go to Portland. My wife was able to transfer with her job, and we moved there, and I just slowly got plugged into the local scene. You know, I hit up everybody, all the sound mixers there in town. And there was one that responded, which was Eric Goldstein, who's a boom operator, like a really old boom operator. He worked on Tremors and a bunch of old stuff. And he gave me the time of day, and then they were working, it was second unit, and Eric had vouched for me to have me come out and meet Christian, who was the second unit sound mixer. So I came out and I was a sound utility for them, and I think I boomed a couple of shots, and they liked me. They liked me so much that they went to Tyler, who's the main mixer there on Grimm, and said that I would be a good fit for the sound utility. And there were some personality conflicts at the time for the sound utility wasn't getting along very well with the mixer and the boom operator. So I eventually replaced that person. And during that time, I was also, when I was doing the second unit stuff, I was also working on like Little People Big World. I was still doing the sports, the Red Bull stuff, traveling a lot. And then when I did the Grimm show was like a 9 to 5 again. So I fell into that same trap. And I was no longer freelancing. I was an employed salaried position where I might as well been at, I mean, it got to the point where it didn't feel like I was almost like an accountant going to the same place every time. That's where I had a hard time with my job, was same people, same place over and over again. And that was tough. And that's, I mean, yeah, most of the time we were there on set or at the sound stage. Every now and then we'd be out in the field doing night exteriors on a Friday night from 10 p.m. until about 5 a.m. in the rain. So that got old. Yeah, that got old real quick.
So that's something important. I don't think people understand, especially people who want to get in the business and they see these big shows, and everyone's goal is I want to get on the big show. Well, the big show, if the season goes, it's kind of awful. It's and it's particularly awful if the people on it are not extraordinary people.
Yep.
If they're anything other than extraordinary, it's factory work.
Yeah. The AD, the director, and the DP kind of get it pretty good because they go every other episode. They flip flop so they can plan for the next episode. But the sound mixer kind of takes it in the shorts because he's another stressful position, but he's there every day. And I think on the 4th season, Tyler decided that he was going to do the same thing that the DP, the director, and the AD were going to do, and he was going to take every other episode off. So he found the guy that trained him, they would just flip flop just to be able to get some break, just because he was getting crushed into the ground, which is very common in the industry.
The burnouts, it's brutal.
It is.
Yeah.
My buddy up in Canada just went to go meet with the film commission or the union up in Vancouver, and they gave like a whole big warning about the high use of drugs, alcohol, substance abuse, and divorce when in the entertainment industry, just because it's so demanding.
Yeah, that's something I would love to talk to you again and kind of talk about all that, like what it's really like to live in the business. We just don't have enough time here to do that. But I wish I'd known. There's a lot that I wish I could tell other people about the business. It's great business. But there's a lot to know that you have no idea.
Yeah. You want to get to the big one. And then when you get to the big one, you realize how much responsibility and how much time it takes and the sacrifices that you have to give up to be on the big one.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do want to come back because I think it kind of has to do with, the painter's pole thing is just a brilliant illustration of how absolutely broke you were. And I think that's hard for anyone who has a business and you need to reinvest capital into the business to buy the equipment, to buy the whatever it is, the inventory, whatever.
And still make rent.
And still feed your family. And and so, you sounds like you just kind of did whatever it took. Have you figured out a system for how did you grow your production package and all the equipment that you have? And, I don't know, you probably have $100,000 of equipment investment, just so people have some idea.
That's that's true. And that's looking back on it, I never understood how sound mixers had all that gear. And that was such a hard thing for me to figure out. I remember I was renting all my gear at the beginning. And so you'd invoice. It didn't take me long to realize this, that I'd send an invoice for my labor. I'd send an invoice for my equipment, and then the recorder and the wireless mics would be the majority of the rental because I was working for cheap. But I'm like, why am I paying this guy to rent his stuff when I should just buy my own? So I went into, I think it was Sweetwater, and found the smallest time code recorder that I could get. And I realized, like, well, if I have this, then at least I can just run the boom into my recorder, and now I can be separate and kind of it's a step in the right direction. And I did it all on credit. And that was the deal, is at that time, my whole life, my parents had kind of like always echoed, don't go into debt for things, pay for it cash. And one of my friends, Holly, she had mentioned, she's like, just do it, dude. Just pull the trigger and do it. You'll be able to pay it off super fast. And I did it. And I remember being so scared. I think it was like $4,000. And I couldn't wrap my head around the purchase. But looking back, it was a business expense, and I did have it paid off quick. And it puts you on another level once you have your own gear.
Man, I'm sorry we don't have enough time. There's so much I want to talk to you about. And I'm bouncing around now because there's so much to talk to you about. When you first got that Grimm gig, and you got the call sheet.
Yep.
And it said be wherever it said. One, were you early or late?
Early.
And two, how did you feel when you arrived there?
Like I was early, always early. But I felt overwhelmed. Like, there's a lot of people on those call sheets, with the big commercial jobs and the big TV jobs. There's a lot of names on there, and it's intimidating and it's scary, but you got to kind of have confidence in yourself that you can do the job. I mean, it's specialized. There's nobody else on the crew that can probably do your job. So you have that going for you, because usually they don't know if you screw up or not. But it's intimidating when you look at the call sheet, and there's a lot of important people on there that make big decisions and have been on big jobs. And it's scary until you get used to it. And then it's not scary anymore. And it's just another day.
We should probably wrap this up, but there's so much I want to ask. Would you do this again? Do like a part 2? And
sure. Yeah.
We get a bit more into the mechanics of the business and even the craft. And then that excludes, then then we also have your world travels that went on for a decade.
Yeah.
I think
Which,
everywhere from the Arctic Circle to France to Kilimanjaro. So
yeah. And I'm talking about I'm thinking about writing a book. There's a possibility of that.
you've got you have to write one. You have to write a memoir. The story is so great, and we did not do it justice at all during this episode. But come back for the second one, because I'd love to talk and talk more about that. But real quick too, like what you're not doing sound anymore.
Nope.
And we talked about that at the beginning. You're in the solar alternative energy solar panel installation business. Where can people find your business and get all that?
Yep. The web address is www.regenensolar.com, and that will take you to the web page for either our Louisville office or for Boise office. If you'd like to get a hold of me on telephone, it's 208-871-1815. And my email is greg.picard@regenensolar.com. And RegenEn is RegenEn solar.com.
We'll put links and numbers all in the show notes below. And please subscribe and like and reach out to Greg, because he can give you probably a great quote on a way to eliminate your power bill, I think. So, and this has all been brought to us. Our sponsor is GD Herring Insurance. Take a look at them. We'll put them in the show notes as well. Greg, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We'll do part 2.
Yeah, I'll tell you about how I almost died. Cheers.
Take care.